A colossal stone giant stands silent on a remote shore. How did ancient people move multi-ton statues across entire islands without wheels or machines? This is one of history's greatest unsolved puzzles. By the end of this video, you will understand the incredible ingenuity behind these ancient engineering feats and why their secrets have remained hidden for centuries. We will uncover how a civilization might have made statues walk and whether their ambition ultimately led to their collapse. What does it take for a society to move a mountain? These silent stone giants are more than just faces in the earth. The moai of Easter Island stand as a breathtaking riddle carved from solid rock. Each one was quarried from the slopes of an extinct volcano, a place called Raraku, where the evidence of their creation is still etched into the mountainside. From this single source, hundreds of these statues were moved across the island, some traveling over 11 miles to their final coastal perches. The sheer scale is difficult to comprehend. Imagine a single statue weighing as much as 82 tons, a mass equivalent to 2 fully loaded semi-trucks. How do you transport something that heavy across rolling hills and rugged terrain without a single wheel or domesticated animal to help? This is the core of the mystery that has captivated explorers and archaeologists for generations. The Rapa Nui people accomplished this incredible feat, yet they left behind no written records, no detailed diagrams of their methods. We are left with only the physical evidence and the silent testimony of the moai themselves. Over the years, many theories have emerged. Perhaps they were dragged on wooden sledges or rolled on logs. Maybe they were made to walk, rocked side to side by teams of people pulling on ropes. Each idea seems plausible in isolation, yet none have fully solved the puzzle, leaving us to wonder what ingenious technique has been lost to time. The story of these statues is not just about engineering. It is a window into a sophisticated culture whose greatest ambition was literally to move mountains. One of the most enduring images is that of hundreds of workers straining against ropes to pull a massive statue on a wooden sledge. This sledge would glide over a path of logs which acted as rollers. As the sledge moved forward, workers would constantly run the logs from the back to the front, creating a continuous rolling road. To reduce friction, they might have lubricated the path with sweet potato mash or other slippery vegetation. This method, often called the sledge and roller theory, seems perfectly logical. It is a simple machine, one used by countless cultures throughout history to move impossibly heavy objects. There is even some physical evidence that supports the idea. Faint, parallel grooves found in certain ancient pathways could be the impressions left by such a system. The real brilliance of this idea lies in its simplicity, using basic physics and abundant manpower to solve an enormous problem. But here is where the theory hits a snag, a problem rooted in the very landscape itself. This method consumes a staggering amount of wood. You would need a steady supply of large, straight logs to keep the rollers moving. Yet, when European explorers first reached Easter Island, they described it as largely treeless. If the island once had lush forests, what happened to them? Did the very act of moving these stone giants demand such a sacrifice that it led to ecological collapse? This question casts a long shadow over the sledge method. It forces us to wonder if this seemingly straightforward solution was actually a desperate, final push that came at a terrible cost. The silence of the forest seems to argue against this theory, pushing us to look for an answer that requires less from the land and more from human ingenuity. But what if the statues never lay down at all? What if they traveled standing tall, walking across the landscape in a slow, rhythmic dance? This is the walking statue hypothesis, a theory that feels more like magic than engineering. Picture teams of people carefully controlling ropes tied to a massive moai. They would rock the statue from side to side, each tilt shifting its center of gravity and nudging it forward, one small step at a time. It would be a breathtaking sight, a stone giant seemingly ambling under its own power. This idea is not pure fantasy. Modern experiments have successfully shown how a surprisingly small group can maneuver a multi-ton concrete replica using this exact rocking method. The physics are surprisingly sound, leveraging the statue's own weight and curved base to create motion. Proponents of this theory also point to local oral traditions, stories passed down through generations that speak of the moai moving with a sacred mana or spiritual power, as if they walked to their platforms on their own. Yet for all its elegance, the walking theory has its skeptics. The primary concern is control. Over a long and uneven journey of many miles, one wrong tug, one misplaced rock, could send the statue crashing down, shattering centuries of work in an instant. The risk of catastrophic failure seems incredibly high. This method also raises questions about efficiency, requiring immense coordination and potentially taking much longer than other methods. The walking theory adds a dynamic, almost human element to the mystery. It transforms the statues from passive cargo into active participants in their own journey. But if walking was too perilous and dragging on sledges was too destructive to the environment, what other option could there be? The answer might lie not in the solid earth, but in something much more fluid. Another possibility emerges from the water itself. Could these stone titans have sailed to their destinations on a network of canals? The theory of canal and barge transport proposes that the Rapa Nui engineered temporary waterways or used existing ones, floating the moai on large rafts or barges. The principle is sound. Water creates buoyancy, dramatically reducing the friction and raw pulling force required. We know other ancient cultures mastered this. The Egyptians famously moved colossal granite obelisks down the Nile on massive stone-carrying boats. The idea of applying this aquatic ingenuity to an island setting is compelling, suggesting a society that skillfully manipulated its entire environment. Yet on Easter Island, the evidence for such a system is frustratingly elusive. No definitive remains of wide, constructed canals have been found. The logistics are also daunting. Carving and maintaining canals capable of handling such immense weight would have been a monumental task in itself, and navigating a heavy, unstable barge through narrow channels without capsizing would have required incredible skill. This water-based theory expands our view of what might have been possible, reminding us that human innovation often flows along the path of least resistance. But if canals leave no trace, perhaps the answer is found in a more direct and surprisingly simple approach, using the land itself in a new way. Perhaps the most hands-on method involves nothing more than long wooden poles and a simple principle of physics. Picture teams of workers inserting strong levers beneath the statue's base. Using a smaller rock as a pivot point, a fulcrum, they would push down in unison, lifting one side of the massive stone just enough to shift its position. With a series of coordinated lifts, pivots, and drops, the moai could be inched forward across almost any kind of ground. This leverage and pivot system is remarkably low-tech, something you might use to maneuver a heavy cabinet across your own floor. The beauty of this idea is its control and adaptability. On the island's uneven, rocky terrain, where a sledge might get stuck or a walking statue might topple, the lever method allows for minute adjustments, navigating obstacles one small movement at a time. Modern experiments have confirmed that with enough people and enough patience, this technique is entirely viable for moving enormous weights. It does not require vast quantities of timber, only a sufficient number of strong poles, which addresses the ecological concerns of the sledge theory. Yet this approach also has its own mystery. If levers were the primary tool, where are they? The archaeological record has not yielded a large cache of the specific, heavy-duty poles that such an operation would demand. Their absence does not disprove the theory, wood decays, but it leaves a question mark. This idea ultimately highlights the raw intelligence of the Rapa Nui people. It suggests that their greatest tool was not a complex machine, but a profound understanding of balance and force, using simple leverage to accomplish a task that still astounds us today. The ingenuity is humbling, but it also pushes us to ask a deeper question. What force truly motivated hundreds of people to commit to such a backbreaking, generation-spanning effort? Was it purely an engineering challenge, or was it driven by something far more powerful, something unseen? The true engine behind moving these statues may not have been physical at all, but spiritual. Imagine the act of transporting a moai not as a grueling engineering project, but as a profound religious procession. For the Rapa Nui, these were not mere blocks of stone. They were the living faces of deified ancestors, powerful beings known as Eringa Ora. Moving them was a sacred duty, a ritual that connected the entire community to the spiritual world. This transforms the entire endeavor. It was not just about getting a heavy object from point A to point B. It was about guiding a revered ancestor to its final resting place, where it could watch over and protect the village. This deep cultural belief provides the missing motivation for such a monumental effort. Why would hundreds of people dedicate their lives to such backbreaking labor? Faith, the promise of divine protection and social prestige, would have been a far more powerful fuel than any whip or command. The coordination required for any of the transport methods we have discussed, whether walking, levering, or dragging, would have been immense. This suggests a society with a highly developed social structure, one capable of organizing and feeding large workforces for extended periods. The chief or priest who commissioned a statue was demonstrating their mana, their spiritual power and authority, by mobilizing the community. The work itself became a binding communal ceremony, with chants, rituals, and a shared sense of purpose turning exhausting labor into a sacred act. This intertwining of faith and engineering is the crucial layer often missing from purely mechanical explanations. It tells us that the ropes pulled were not just exerting force, they were transmitting prayer. Each tilt of a walking statue was a step in a spiritual dance. The levers were not just tools, they were extensions of collective will. The mystery of how they moved begins to make more sense when we understand why they moved them. The immense effort was not a symptom of obsession, but an expression of a vibrant, complex culture whose worldview was literally set in stone. Yet, even the most powerful faith must contend with the physical world. The very land they sought to honor with these giants may have ultimately turned against them. The very earth beneath their feet tells a story of drastic change. Pollen samples taken from the island's lake beds reveal a landscape that was once rich with a now vanished forest, dominated by a massive palm tree. These trees were giants in their own right, with trunks ideal for creating the rollers, sledges, and levers needed to move the moai. For generations, this resource was seemingly endless, fueling the ambition to carve and transport ever more statues. But the evidence shows a clear and chilling timeline. The pollen from these great trees begins to disappear from the record, fading away century by century until it vanishes completely. This deforestation coincides precisely with the most intense period of statue construction. It paints a stark picture of a society consuming its own lifeblood to feed its cultural obsession. The consequences would have been catastrophic. Without trees to anchor the soil, erosion would have stripped the land of its fertility. The loss of the palm forests also meant no more nuts for food, no more wood for building canoes for deep-sea fishing, and no more materials for shelter. A culture that had mastered moving mountains of stone was suddenly vulnerable to the slow collapse of its own ecosystem. This environmental angle forces us to confront a difficult truth. The Rapa Nui were not just brilliant engineers, they were also human, facing the universal challenge of balancing ambition with sustainability. Did they see the crisis coming? Were the final massive statues a desperate attempt to summon ancestral help as their world frayed at the edges? Or were they the last grand gestures of a society already on a path it could no longer reverse? The silent, treeless hills stand as a monument to this profound trade-off. Yet, even as the physical resources dwindled, one resource remained vibrant, passed from one generation to the next through the power of the human voice. The whispers of the past offer a different kind of evidence, one not carved in rock but carried on the breath of storytellers. For generations, elders have passed down narratives where the impossible feels tangible. In some Pacific traditions, massive stones were said to glide across the land, guided by the chants and sacred power of priests. Heroes did not just pull ropes, they commanded the elements, making the statues move through spiritual force alone. To our modern, scientific minds, these stories sound like pure myth. Yet, to dismiss them is to miss a vital clue. These legends are not failed engineering reports, they are cultural treasures that encode deep truths. When a story says a statue walked, it may be a poetic way of describing the rhythmic, rocking motion of the walking theory, transforming a difficult physical process into a memorable, magical event. The mention of supernatural aid could reflect the profound communal effort and shared belief that made the task possible, an energy so powerful it felt like a miracle to those involved. These oral histories remind us that the true scale of the achievement was not just measured in tons of rock moved, but in the unity of purpose and the strength of tradition that fueled the work. They give us the why that pure physics can never provide. So, if the stories give us the spirit and the landscape gives us the context, what tangible proof did the builders leave behind? The search for answers now turns to the physical objects they held in their hands. The very tools they used lie scattered around the quarry, silent witnesses to the immense labor. Archaeologists have uncovered thousands of teardrop-shaped stone picks called toki, made from the hard basalt rock of the island. These handheld hammers were the primary instruments for carving the moai directly from the volcanic tuff, their worn and chipped surfaces telling a story of countless repetitive strikes. But the evidence extends far beyond the workshop. Leading away from Raraku are ancient roads, some with clear, parallel grooves worn into the bedrock. These tracks look eerily like the ruts left by a massive sled or the repeated pivoting of a heavy object, marking the paths these giants once traveled. Then there are the moai who never made it to their platforms, the ones that fell and were abandoned along the route. Their positions are crucial clues. A statue found face down might suggest a catastrophic forward collapse, while one on its side could indicate a tipping accident. These fallen figures are like frozen moments of failure, each one revealing a little more about the stresses and challenges of the journey. Yet for all these tangible pieces, the puzzle remains incomplete. The wooden sledges, the ropes, the levers, all the organic components of any transport system have long since returned to the earth. We have the stone tools and the stone roads, but we are missing the crucial wooden parts that connected them. This is why the debate continues, because the most critical evidence has simply vanished with time. These fragments are a powerful, if silent, testimony. They prove the movement was real and physically grueling, but they do not single out one definitive method. This grand mystery of moving monuments is not unique to this remote Pacific island. All around the world, other ancient cultures left behind their own colossal riddles, challenging us to understand how they built the impossible. The same questions that haunt Easter Island echo across the globe. In the misty fields of England, the colossal stones of Stonehenge were somehow transported over land and water from quarries many miles away. Meanwhile, along the Nile, the ancient Egyptians erected needle-sharp obelisks carved from single blocks of red granite, some weighing over 400 tons, and moved them hundreds of miles on barges. These are not isolated puzzles, but pieces of a grander human story. When we place the moai alongside these other monuments, a fascinating pattern of ingenuity emerges. Different cultures, separated by vast oceans and centuries, all arrived at startlingly similar solutions. They all understood the fundamental power of the ramp, the roller, and the coordinated human workforce. The Egyptians mastered water transport, floating their stone giants on the predictable currents of the Nile, a solution that may have inspired the canal theory for the island. The builders of Stonehenge likely used a combination of log rollers and sledges to haul their bluestones across the rugged landscape. Seeing these shared principles helps us realize that moving mountains was not a unique obsession, but a recurring triumph of early engineering. This global perspective shifts the mystery. It is no longer just about how one isolated culture moved their statues, but about the universal human drive to achieve the impossible with nothing but simple physics and sheer determination. The real question becomes, how can we prove which of these brilliant ideas actually worked? The search for answers has moved from the ancient quarries to the modern laboratory. These modern experiments turn abstract theories into a physical, grueling reality. In one famous demonstration, a team of just 18 people managed to walk a 5-ton concrete moai replica by carefully rocking it side to side with ropes. The statue, engineered with a subtly curved base, moved forward in a series of small, shuffling steps, covering a surprising distance with each coordinated pull. This was not just a theory anymore, it was a working model, proving that the walking method was physically possible with a relatively small crew. Yet the same experiment also revealed the method's terrifying risks. A slight miscalculation in the pull or an unseen rock on the path could easily send the multi-ton figure toppling. The potential for a catastrophic and irreparable crash was a constant shadow over the entire process, a risk ancient engineers would have understood all too well. Other experiments tested the sledge and roller approach, demonstrating just how much raw manpower was required to overcome friction. Teams of dozens, and sometimes over 100, volunteers would strain against thick ropes, dragging a heavy load over a path of logs. These trials confirmed that the method works, but they also quantified its immense cost, the sheer volume of timber needed, and the exhausting, slow pace of progress. Every successful lift of a lever or controlled tilt of a statue adds a layer of credibility to these ancient techniques. The failures are equally instructive. A broken rope or a stuck sledge teaches a vivid lesson about the practical challenges the Rapa Nui faced daily. These reenactments do more than test physics. They connect us to the human experience of the endeavor. You can feel the strain in your own muscles, understand the need for perfect communication, and appreciate the incredible coordination that must have been routine. This hands-on research brings us face to face with the reality that moving these giants was a monumental achievement of social organization as much as it was of engineering. But what if we could run these experiments thousands of times, testing every variable without the physical danger or the need for a single volunteer? This digital frontier allows us to test the impossible. Computer simulations create a virtual Easter Island where scientists can run thousands of transport experiments in the time it takes to drink a cup of coffee. They input every known variable, the precise weight and center of gravity of a moai, the exact friction coefficient of grassy soil versus volcanic rock, and the pulling power of a human crew. With a click, the simulation begins, modeling scenarios that would be far too dangerous or expensive to attempt in the real world. What happens if you try to walk an 80-ton statue on a steep slope? The software can predict the exact point of catastrophic failure. How many people are truly needed to lever a statue over a rocky outcrop? The model calculates the optimal team size and placement. This high-tech tool has provided some of the strongest support for the walking theory, demonstrating mathematically how a series of small, controlled oscillations could, over time, build enough momentum to propel a multi-ton giant forward in a stable, shuffling gait. It reveals the delicate physics behind what might have looked like magic. These simulations do not replace the gritty work of field experiments, but they act as a powerful guide, narrowing down the most plausible methods and saving researchers from pursuing dead ends. This fusion of cutting-edge technology and ancient history opens a new window into the past, a virtual proving ground where the secrets of the moai are tested not with ropes and sweat, but with algorithms and data. Yet, even the most perfect simulation cannot fully capture the human element, the social engine that powered these incredible endeavors. The real monument was not the statue itself, but the community that moved it. Coordinating hundreds of people to pull ropes in perfect rhythm or to lift with levers on a single command required a social machine more complex than any tool. This was not a chaotic mob of laborers, it was a society operating with a shared vision and a clear chain of command. Chiefs or priests likely acted as project managers, organizing teams, securing food and water for the workers, and planning the route. This level of social organization reveals a culture with sophisticated roles, from the master carvers who shaped the stone faces to the cooks who sustained the workforce and the ritual specialists who ensured the spiritual success of the journey. The sheer logistics of feeding and housing a large, mobile workforce for weeks or months on end is a staggering achievement in its own right, pointing to a highly structured and cooperative society. Their shared purpose transformed exhausting labor into a unifying force, a collective endeavor that reinforced social bonds and cultural identity with every inch the statue moved. Yet this incredible mobilization of human effort often casts a long shadow. The very societies that achieved these breathtaking feats of unity and engineering frequently faced a stark reality once the last statue was set in place. The immense concentration of resources and labor on these monumental projects could leave a community vulnerable, its social and physical environment stretched to their limits. After the final celebration, a difficult question often remained: what happens when a culture's greatest ambition is finally realized and the work that defined a generation suddenly comes to an end? A society's greatest triumph can sometimes cast the longest shadow. The same cultural drive that raised these stone giants to honor the ancestors also appears to have pushed the island's resources to the brink. The archaeological record tells a sobering story, one of a peak in statue transport followed by a sharp and unmistakable decline. The most telling evidence lies along the ancient roads themselves, where massive moai were abandoned mid-journey, some still lying exactly where they fell centuries ago. These are not just statues, they are frozen moments in time, capturing the precise instant when the grand ambition of a culture collided with an unforgiving reality. The quarry at Rano, Raraku is a landscape of interrupted dreams, with nearly 400 statues left in various stages of completion, as if the workers simply put down their tools one day and never returned. This widespread abandonment points to a sudden and systemic collapse. The very social unity that made moving the statues possible may have fractured under the strain of environmental catastrophe. As the forests vanished and the soil eroded, competition for scarce resources like food, water, and usable timber likely turned violent. The peaceful, cooperative society that orchestrated these incredible engineering feats may have devolved into conflict, its spiritual bonds broken by the desperate struggle for survival. The fallen statues, deliberately toppled face down, could be the physical scars of this civil strife, a symbolic rejection of the ancestral power that failed to protect them. This pattern is a haunting echo across the Pacific. Other island cultures that engaged in massive monument building, from the complex chiefdoms of the Marquesas to the mound builders of the American South, often show similar cycles of peak construction followed by societal fragmentation. It forces us to confront a difficult truth that human ambition, no matter how brilliantly executed, must exist in a delicate balance with the environment that sustains it. The story of these collapses is not one of foolishness, but of a universal human challenge: how to navigate the thin line between cultural expression and ecological limits. These silent, toppled giants are more than just ruins. They are a powerful warning from the past, but their story does not end with their fall. Today, a new kind of effort is underway, one focused not on moving the statues, but on ensuring they stand for centuries to come. The silent giants now face a new and relentless challenge, not from the strain of movement, but from the slow, invisible forces of a changing world. Gentle rainfall, once a source of life, now carries a subtle acidity that eats away at the soft volcanic tuff. The salty ocean winds which these statues faced for centuries are growing stronger, scouring their surfaces grain by grain. Even the footfalls of countless admirers, each step filled with wonder, subtly vibrates the ground, threatening the stability of these ancient figures. The very act of looking upon them has become a threat. In response, a quiet army of conservators has arrived, armed not with ropes and levers, but with brushes, lasers, and delicate tools. Their work is a painstaking ballet of preservation. They carefully clean biological growths like lichen, inject stabilizing resins into hidden cracks, and monitor the slightest shifts in a statue's posture with digital precision. This is not a restoration to make the statues look new, but a battle to freeze them in time, to halt the decay so their stories are not lost. The goal is always minimal intervention, a deep respect for every crack and weathering pattern that tells the story of the statue's long life. This global effort unites international scientists with local Rapa Nui community members, blending cutting-edge technology with ancestral knowledge. The descendants of the original carvers now work alongside geologists, their shared purpose to protect a heritage that belongs to both their family line and all of humanity. They are building a legacy not of new monuments, but of guardianship, ensuring that the question of how they moved continues to be asked for centuries to come. Yet this protective mission exists in a delicate balance with another powerful force: the human desire to stand in the presence of mystery, a force that brings both life and potential peril to these fragile sites. Every footstep near these ancient giants carries a double-edged weight. The steady stream of visitors provides a vital economic lifeline for the local community, funding conservation projects and sharing the island's profound story with the world. Yet this same admiration, multiplied by hundreds of thousands of footsteps each year, poses a silent, cumulative threat. The soil around the statues becomes compacted, damaging the integrity of the ground they stand on. The moisture and oils from human hands, even with the lightest touch, accelerate the erosion of the soft stone. Managing this delicate balance between access and preservation has become one of the modern era's greatest challenges. Park authorities have implemented careful strategies, creating designated viewing platforms and winding boardwalks that guide the flow of people. These paths are not just for convenience, they are protective barriers, ensuring that the collective wonder of today does not erase the legacy of yesterday. In some of the most sensitive areas, strict visitor caps are enforced, a necessary sacrifice to prevent irreversible damage. This careful dance raises a profound question for our time. How do we share a fragile treasure with the world without loving it to death? The global fascination with these mysteries is a powerful force, sparking interest in archaeology and history in the minds of people who may never set foot on the island. It reminds us that these are not just local monuments, but part of humanity's shared heritage. As tourism continues to evolve, so too must our relationship with these sites, moving from passive sightseeing to active, respectful stewardship. This public fascination has not only shaped how we visit these wonders, but also how we imagine them, inspiring a world of artistic interpretation that gives these ancient enigmas new life. The silent drama of these ancient journeys has long spilled over from the quarries into the realm of art. Across canvases and screens, we see powerful depictions of these events, where history and speculation merge into a single, compelling vision. A painter might show a line of hundreds of figures, their bodies straining against thick ropes, pulling a monolithic statue under a stormy sky. A filmmaker might use special effects to bring the walking theory to life, making a stone giant shuffle rhythmically across the landscape as if guided by an unseen force. These artistic interpretations do more than just illustrate a theory. They infuse the cold facts of archaeology with human emotion, struggle, and awe. They ask us to feel the tension in the ropes and hear the coordinated chants of the workers, transforming an engineering puzzle into an epic human story. This creative license is not about distorting the truth, but about exploring its emotional core, giving a face and a feeling to the immense effort. These works, from blockbuster films to illustrated children's books, play a crucial role in shaping public perception. For many people, their first and most lasting impression of the moai comes not from a textbook, but from a stunning visual representation they saw in a documentary or a novel. This widespread cultural exposure keeps the mystery alive in the popular imagination, ensuring that each new generation is drawn to the question of how it was done. The artist's brush and the writer's pen become tools of preservation as powerful as any archaeologist's trowel, safeguarding the wonder of these achievements through the power of story. They remind us that some mysteries are too grand to be confined to academic papers, demanding instead to be felt and imagined. And just as the artists look to the land for inspiration, the land itself holds the oldest clues, written not in paint but in stone and soil. The stone itself holds the first secret. The quarries of Raraku are not just a source of rock, they are a vast open-air workshop frozen in time, where the very geology of the island dictated the limits of ambition. The volcanic tuff found here is a uniquely forgiving stone, soft enough to be carved with simple basalt tools, yet firm enough to hold a detailed shape. This was not a random choice, it was a masterful selection of the perfect material for the task. A harder stone like granite would have been nearly impossible to shape with the available technology, while a softer stone would have crumbled under its own weight during transport. The Rapa Nui carvers understood their medium intimately, working with the natural grain and fissures of the rock to free each statue from the mountainside with astonishing efficiency. But this geological advantage came with a tremendous cost: weight. The very softness that made the tuff so carvable also meant that the resulting statues were incredibly dense and heavy, transforming every journey into a Herculean test of logistics. Geologists studying the quarry faces can still see the precise tool marks, the channels carved around partially finished moai, and the empty sockets where giants once stood. This physical evidence allows them to reconstruct the entire extraction process. From the first strike of the stone pick to the final moment the statue was pried free and prepared for its voyage. The location of these quarries was therefore everything. A statue meant for a platform just a mile away presented a vastly different challenge than one destined for a coast 11 miles distant. The terrain between the quarry and the final site, with its hills, valleys, and soil types, would have been the primary factor in choosing a transport method. A route over soft, grassy soil might have allowed for a sledge, while a rocky, uneven path would have demanded the precise control of levers. This geological groundwork is the essential first layer in solving the mystery, providing the physical constraints within which all human ingenuity had to operate. It forces us to ask, if the land provided the challenge, did the sky perhaps provide the guide? The stars themselves may have guided these stone giants to their final resting places. Far from being randomly positioned, some of the iconic platforms, or Ahu, appear to have precise astronomical alignments. Certain coastal shrines are oriented so that the statues face the rising sun during the spring or autumn equinox, bathing their stone faces in the first light of dawn on those significant days. Others may align with the solstices or the position of specific constellations that held deep meaning for the Rapa Nui people. This celestial connection transforms the statues from simple ancestral figures into active participants in a cosmic order. Their transport and placement was not just a matter of logistics, it was the final step in a grand ritual, a way of anchoring the sacred rhythms of the heavens into the very landscape of the island. The journey was part of a cosmological plan, where every pull of a rope and every tilt of the statue was a physical act with spiritual consequences, moving the ancestor into a position of eternal celestial observation. While the evidence for widespread astronomical alignment is still debated among scholars, the very possibility forces us to expand our understanding of the culture's sophistication. It suggests a society that watched the skies as intently as they shaped the earth, possessing a complex knowledge that wove time, space, and divinity into a single tapestry. This layer of intentionality makes their achievement even more profound. Yet, the skies they observed were not always benevolent. The same climate that provided clear nights for stargazing also posed immense challenges, and over centuries, its gradual shifts may have directly influenced how, and even if, these massive stones could be moved at all. The rhythm of the seasons dictated the pace of this monumental work. Seasonal rains would have turned the island's dirt tracks into treacherous mud pits, where any sledge or set of rollers would sink and become hopelessly stuck. In contrast, a long dry spell would bake the ground hard, creating a firmer, more stable surface ideal for dragging or levering a multi-ton weight. The ancient builders were not just engineers, they were keen observers of their environment, almost certainly planning their most ambitious transports for the driest months of the year. This careful timing was not a mere convenience. It was a critical strategy to maximize traction and minimize the risk of a catastrophic, mud-induced collapse. Paleoclimate studies, which analyze things like ancient pollen and sediment layers, help us paint a picture of what the island's weather was like during the peak of statue construction. These scientific snapshots suggest the Rapa Nui navigated a climate that was generally drier than today's, but still punctuated by unpredictable, heavy downpours. A sudden storm could have halted work for days, leaving a half-moved statue perilously exposed on a slippery incline. This intimate dance with the weather grounds our theories in a tangible reality. It forces us to see the transport not as an abstract puzzle, but as a gritty, day-by-day struggle against the elements, where a clear sky was as valuable as a strong rope. The success of moving a moai depended as much on reading the clouds as it did on understanding physics. This deep connection to the natural world extends beyond the weather itself, raising another intriguing possibility. Could the Rapa Nui have enlisted the help of other native species to share the immense burden? The idea of animal helpers seems logical at first glance. On great continents, the immense power of oxen was harnessed to drag stone blocks for pyramids and temples. Yet on remote islands like Easter Island, this option simply did not exist. The only large land animals present were chickens and Polynesian rats, creatures utterly incapable of shifting an 80-ton stone giant. The Rapa Nui arrived with a limited suite of domesticated animals, and none of them were beasts of burden. This profound lack of large native or introduced species forced a fundamental shift in strategy. The entire monumental endeavor had to be powered by human hands and human will alone. This limitation is what makes these island mysteries so unique and so compelling. Without animal muscle to rely on, the community itself became the engine. Every ounce of force required to move a statue had to come from coordinated human effort, from the synchronized pull on a rope to the unified push on a lever. This reality elevates the achievement from a simple engineering problem to a breathtaking social one. It underscores that the true power was not found in domesticated creatures, but in a domesticated society, one capable of incredible unity and shared purpose. The absence of animal aid narrows the field of possible theories, pointing us squarely back to the brilliant application of basic physics by a vast and organized workforce. This human-centric solution forces us to ask what fundamental principles of engineering they had to master to make the impossible merely difficult. The physics behind moving these giants is a story of leverage and ingenuity. Ancient engineers did not need complex equations. They grasped the principles through hands-on experience. They understood friction as the enemy, the force that resists motion. To overcome it, they had to either reduce the friction itself or increase the force applied. This is where the simple machine became their greatest ally. The lever, a long pole, and a pivot point gave them mechanical advantage. By placing a fulcrum close to the statue, a team pushing down on the long end of the lever could generate enough force to lift a corner of the massive weight, allowing them to shift its position inch by inch. It is the same principle you use with a crowbar to pry open a heavy crate, amplifying your own strength through the power of physics. The inclined plane was another tool in their mental toolkit. While not a literal ramp for transport, the concept of splitting a steep slope into a gentler, more manageable grade was crucial. By choosing longer, more gradual routes over shorter, steeper ones, they effectively reduced the pulling force needed at any single moment. This is why you take a winding road up a mountain instead of climbing straight up the cliff face. The work done is the same, but the effort required at any one time is far less. These were not random acts of brute force. They were calculated applications of fundamental physics, turning an impossible task into a series of solvable problems. Modern researchers use these very same principles to test the theories. They calculate the coefficient of friction between a stone sledge and a log roller, or model the center of gravity of a walking statue to see how easily it can be rocked. This scientific lens does not diminish the ancient achievement. It illuminates the profound intelligence embedded in their methods. It bridges centuries, showing that the logic they used is the same logic we rely on today. And just as the principles of physics guided their hands, the structure of their society determined whose hands did the work. The massive stone figures did not move by engineering alone, but through the coordinated effort of an entire society. Within that workforce, tasks were almost certainly divided along lines defined by powerful cultural norms and beliefs. The image of rows of muscular men straining against ropes is a compelling one, yet it likely tells only part of the story. While the most physically demanding labor of pulling and levering probably fell to men, the supporting roles that made such work possible would have been vast and varied. Women may have been central to these efforts, managing the immense logistics of feeding and hydrating the workforce, preparing food, and supplying water to the crews across the long, arduous routes. Their role could have extended into the spiritual realm as well, perhaps performing chants and rituals to ensure the safe passage of the ancestral spirit housed within the stone. Even children might have had a part to play, fetching tools or carrying smaller supplies, integrating the next generation into this vital communal act from a young age. This division of labor was not about inequality, but about efficiency and cultural order, with every member of the community contributing their mana or spiritual power to the collective endeavor. Viewing the transport through this social lens transforms it from a mere feat of strength into a holistic cultural performance. The ropes were pulled by human hands, but the will to pull them was woven from the fabric of an entire society, where every role, seen and unseen, was essential. This intricate social machine, however, has been viewed through very different lenses by the scholars who have sought to explain it. The debates over how these statues moved are as dynamic as the methods themselves. Walk into any archaeology conference, and you will find passionate discussions where evidence is scrutinized and long-held beliefs are challenged. Early colonial accounts often dismissed the achievements of the Rapa Nui people, suggesting the statues must have been moved by some lost race or even extraterrestrial help. Modern scholarship has firmly rejected these outdated views, shifting the focus back to the incredible ingenuity of the islanders themselves. This academic evolution is not about one side winning, but about a collective striving for a more accurate, respectful understanding. A proponent of the walking theory might point to the success of modern experiments, while a skeptic counters with the sheer number of statues found broken along the roads, arguing that such a risky method could not have been used so widely. Someone championing the lever method highlights its low resource cost, while another questions why no large scale where patterns from such pivoting have been conclusively identified. These are not just arguments, they are the engine of discovery. Each critique forces researchers to refine their models, to go back into the field and look for that one piece of overlooked evidence that could tip the scales. This intellectual journey ensures that our understanding of the past remains fluid, adapting to new data and perspectives. It reminds us that history is not a list of settled facts, but a living conversation across time. This vibrant, sometimes contentious, discourse is what pushes knowledge forward, but it also raises a profound and necessary question about our role in this story. How do we ethically engage with a living culture's most sacred treasures? These silent stone figures are more than just artifacts, they are ancestors. For the Rapa Nui people, the moai are sacred family, and their connection to them is a living, breathing bond. This deep relationship stands in stark contrast to the glass cases of distant museums, where many moai and their sacred topknots called pukao were taken over a century ago. This separation has created a profound and painful ethical rift. Who truly has the right to care for, study, and speak for these cultural giants? The answer is reshaping modern archaeology. The movement for repatriation, the return of these cultural treasures to their homeland, is not about hiding history, but about healing it. Every statue that comes home is a piece of a broken lineage restored. This process forces institutions to confront a difficult past, where objects were often acquired under colonial power dynamics, treated as scientific curiosities rather than revered beings. But the ethical questions run even deeper than physical ownership. It is about voice and representation. For too long, the story of the moai was told solely by outsiders, their interpretations framed by Western science. Today, a vital shift is occurring. Researchers are increasingly partnering with Rapa Nui community members, not as subjects, but as co-investigators. Their ancestral knowledge, passed down through chants and oral histories, provides context that no soil sample can ever reveal. This collaborative approach ensures that research is conducted with respect, following cultural protocols, and that the findings are shared in a way that honors the statue's spiritual significance. These ethical considerations are the necessary heart of any responsible inquiry. They remind us that our quest to solve a mechanical mystery must never trample on the living culture that gives these stones their true meaning. Our curiosity must be guided by humility, ensuring that the pursuit of knowledge does not become a new form of taking. This more respectful path forward is now being illuminated by a powerful new tool, one that can scan the entire island without disturbing a single blade of sacred grass. Aerial lasers now scan the island's surface, cutting through dense vegetation to reveal the land's hidden bones. This technology, known as LiDAR, acts like an X-ray for the landscape, mapping the ground with pinpoint accuracy. From the air, it strips away the modern world to expose ancient roadways and pathways that have been invisible for centuries. These are not just trails, but the precise routes these stone giants traveled, etched into the earth and now made visible by light. On the ground, another tool takes over. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses deep into the soil, painting a picture of what lies beneath without a single shovel breaking the earth. It can detect buried stones, old post holes, and subtle changes in soil density that hint at where work camps once stood or where a statue might have fallen and been covered by time. This non-invasive approach is a form of technological respect, allowing researchers to investigate without damaging these sacred sites. Together, these tools have uncovered a network of transport roads far more complex than anyone previously suspected. The paths are not always straight. They curve to avoid natural obstacles, suggesting a sophisticated knowledge of the easiest, most efficient route. This high-tech detective work accelerates our understanding at an incredible pace, turning years of field surveying into days of data analysis. It provides a whole new layer of evidence, a digital witness to the immense effort. But what were these roads truly leading toward? The physical journey of the statues is only half the story. Their final placement and profound symbolism suggest the destination was just as carefully planned as the path to get there. These stone faces were anchors for the entire world of the Rapa Nui. They were not merely monuments, but the solidified presence of powerful ancestors known as Eringa Ora, or living faces. Each one represented a direct link to the past, a conduit for spiritual power, or mana, that would watch over and protect the living community. This was not abstract art, it was a fundamental statement of identity, power, and lineage. A chief who could commission and transport a massive moai was demonstrating immense mana, proving his ability to command both the physical labor of the people and the spiritual favor of the ancestors. The journey of the statue from quarry to coast was therefore a sacred procession, a physical manifestation of bringing an ancestor home. Every pull on a rope, every coordinated lift with a lever, was an act of collective worship, reinforcing the social bonds that held the community together. The sheer effort was not a burden, but an investment in their collective survival and prosperity. This symbolic weight transforms our understanding of the transport. It was not a technical problem to be solved, but a cultural ritual to be performed. The destination of each statue was carefully chosen, often on coastal platforms called Ahu that served as the spiritual center of a village. Placing the ancestor there, facing inland, meant its watchful gaze would fall upon its descendants, its mana blessing the land and the people. This profound symbolism explains the almost incomprehensible effort. You do not move an 80-ton block of stone for 11 miles on a whim. You do it because your culture, your identity, and your very survival depend on the spiritual connection it represents. The statues were eternal markers of human aspiration, a defiant declaration of we are here and our ancestors are with us. This deep cultural layer, woven from power, lineage, and belief, is the crucial piece that makes the practical mystery of their movement finally make sense. And while the Rapa Nui created one of the world's most iconic monumental traditions, their story is part of a much wider tapestry of Pacific ambition. The Pacific Ocean was a vast stage for monumental ambition. Far beyond the shores of Easter Island, other cultures faced the same fundamental challenge, moving massive stones with nothing but human ingenuity. In the rugged Marquesas Islands, for instance, immense stone platforms called moai were constructed. The builders there often chose a different path, literally. Rather than transporting finished statues over great distances, they frequently carved their powerful stone figures, known as tiki, directly at the quarry site. These figures were then moved much shorter distances, sometimes just a few hundred yards, to their final platforms using a combination of log rollers and earthen ramps. This approach minimized the risk of a long, perilous journey, adapting the grand vision to the constraints of their steep, volcanic terrain. Meanwhile, in the Cook Islands, a distinct strategy emerged. Here, coral roads were painstakingly constructed, creating smooth, firm pathways specifically designed to facilitate the movement of stone. This was a permanent investment in infrastructure, a solution that reflected a different relationship with the landscape and resources. Each island society looked at the same basic problem, weight versus distance, and engineered a unique answer based on what their specific environment offered. The dense Marquesan forests provided ample timber for rollers, while the Cook Islanders utilized the abundant coral from their reefs. This incredible diversity of methods shatters the idea of a single secret technique. It reveals a panorama of innovation where each culture became a master of its own unique set of circumstances. They all understood the principles of leverage and reduced friction, but they applied them in brilliantly localized ways. This comparative view does not diminish the achievement of the Rapa Nui. It places them within a wider tapestry of Pacific genius. It shows that the true marvel was not a specific trick, but the universal human capacity to solve impossible problems with the tools at hand. And for every one of these methods, from the short haul in the Marquesas to the coral highways of the Cook Islands, success depended on one invisible ingredient: the perfect synchronization of human effort. The sound of 1,000 footsteps and the strain of ropes would have been orchestrated by a powerful, unifying rhythm. A lead chanter might have called out a steady beat, with hundreds of voices responding in a deep, resonant chorus. The pull on the ropes would happen precisely on the downbeat, turning a chaotic effort into a single, fluid motion. This was more than just a work song, it was a critical piece of engineering. A steady rhythm prevents workers from working against each other, ensuring that their collective force is applied at the exact same moment for maximum effect. It transforms a group of individuals into a single, powerful machine. Oral traditions from across the Pacific speak of sacred chants used to give strength to the workers and to guide the statues with spiritual energy. You can almost hear it, the rhythmic stomp of feet, the deep, chanting voices rising and falling, and the great stone giant inching forward with every unified pulse of effort. This auditory layer adds a profound human dimension to the physical puzzle. It reminds us that this was not a silent, grim struggle, but a vibrant, cultural performance where music and muscle worked in perfect harmony. Yet for all this coordination and shared purpose, the journey was never without risk. The evidence of catastrophic failure is written across the island's landscape. The crack in the statue's torso tells a story of a single, catastrophic moment. Scattered along the ancient roads, these fallen giants are not just monuments, but memorials to ambition's limits. Each one is a frozen accident, a lesson in what not to do. A massive moai found face down on a steep incline suggests a loss of control during a downhill pull, its own immense weight becoming its undoing. Another, shattered into several large pieces at the base of a rocky outcrop, hints at a disastrous tip during a complex maneuver. These were not planned abandonments. They were sudden, irreversible failures that would have echoed through the community with a sickening crunch of stone. The silence that followed such an event must have been deafening, a stark contrast to the coordinated chants that moments before had filled the air. These broken figures humanize the ancient builders far more than their successors ever could. They reveal a process of brutal trial and error, where every transport was a high-stakes experiment, a statue that snapped at its thin neck during the rocking motion of the walking method would have taught a harsh lesson about structural weak points. A sledge that sank irrevocably into waterlogged ground would have demonstrated the critical importance of seasonal timing. Each failure forced a refinement of technique, an adjustment to the route, or a redesign of the statue itself for greater stability. They were learning as they went, pushing the boundaries of the possible and sometimes crossing them. These ancient mistakes are not signs of incompetence, they are proof of incredible courage. They show a society willing to risk total loss in pursuit of a vision, understanding that true achievement is often paved with setbacks. As we piece together these fragments of the past, we are not just solving an engineering puzzle. We are rediscovering a fundamental truth about human potential, a reminder that our greatest heights are often reached only after we learn from our most profound falls. The echoes of their efforts speak to a truth far greater than any single statue. These ancient puzzles are not just about rocks and ropes, they are a mirror reflecting our own boundless capacity for ingenuity. When faced with an impossible task, the human response has always been the same: to gather, to think, and to persevere. The true monument left behind by the Rapa Nui is not the stone itself, but the powerful proof that a united community can move mountains with nothing but creativity and collective will. This legacy of perseverance is a vital inheritance for our own time. We face modern giants, the immense challenges of climate change, resource scarcity, and global collaboration. The same spirit that orchestrated the journey of an 80-ton statue across an island can guide us in building a sustainable future. It reminds us that no obstacle is too great when human intelligence and cooperation are aligned toward a common goal. The silent lesson of the moai is one of profound hope, a reminder that our ancestors were not primitive, but brilliant problem solvers whose achievements still leave us in awe. The mystery of their methods continues to drive us forward, pushing the boundaries of archaeology with new technologies. As we refine our computer models and develop even more sensitive scanning equipment, we come closer than ever to hearing the whispers of the past. The next chapter in this story will be written with data and discovery, perhaps finally revealing the exact rhythm of the ropes and the precise placement of the levers. The enduring quest to understand how they moved these giants ensures that the story of human ingenuity is never finished, but forever being written, one solved mystery at a time. The next clue might be hiding in a fleck of pollen or a microscopic tool mark. Future research will not rely on a single breakthrough, but on a powerful fusion of disciplines, each bringing a new lens to this ancient puzzle. Imagine geneticists analyzing tiny organic residues still clinging to the stone picks found in the quarry. They could identify the specific types of plants that were used to lubricate sledges or to make the ropes, giving us a direct link to the materials of the transport process. At the same time, material scientists are developing simulations of unprecedented detail. These digital models will not just test a single statue on a flat plane, but will simulate entire transport routes, factoring in real weather data, soil moisture from different seasons, and the exact fatigue levels of a human crew over weeks of labor. The goal is to move from asking if a method was possible to understanding which one was most probable, efficient, and sustainable for the society that used it. Perhaps the most exciting frontier lies just offshore. Underwater archaeologists are now scanning the island's coastline with advanced sonar, searching for submerged structures or fallen moai that could rewrite our understanding of their journey. A statue found in the ocean along a direct path from the quarry to an Ahu would provide powerful evidence for the canal or barge theory, a silent witness preserved in the deep. This interdisciplinary approach ensures the mystery remains a vibrant, living question. Each new generation of researchers brings its own tools and its own questions, ensuring that our understanding of the past is never static but always evolving. The journey to uncover how these giants moved is itself a reflection of human ingenuity, a persistent drive to solve a challenge that has captivated us for centuries. We began with a silent stone giant on a remote shore, a monument to a breathtaking riddle. We explored the quarries where these figures were born and the many theories of their epic journeys, from sledges gliding on logs to the rhythmic dance of the walking method. We saw how this was more than engineering. It was an act of profound faith, a communal endeavor powered by spiritual belief and sophisticated social organization. The story took a sobering turn as we saw how this monumental ambition may have stretched the island's resources to their limit, a powerful reminder of the delicate balance between culture and environment. Yet the legacy endures not only in the statues that still stand but in the global effort to preserve them and the ethical journey to honor the living culture they represent. The mystery of the moai is ultimately a story about us, about the incredible things human beings can achieve when we unite our minds, our muscles, and our spirits toward a single, impossible goal. So the stones remain and the questions linger. We have traced the paths of these giants from the quarries where they were born to the coasts where they still stand guard. We have weighed the possibilities, from sledges gliding on forests of logs to the rhythmic, hypnotic dance of the walking method. We have seen how this incredible ambition was fueled by a deep spiritual faith and a powerful social unity, and how it may have ultimately tested the very limits of the island that sustained it. This is more than an ancient engineering puzzle. It is a profound story about human brilliance and its boundaries. These silent stone faces are monuments not just to ancestors, but to our own enduring curiosity. They remind us that history's greatest treasures are not always the answers we find, but the mysteries that compel us to look. The journey to understand our past is never truly over. It is a continuous adventure, driven by the same spark of wonder that led a civilization to move mountains. If this exploration into the unknown has captured your imagination, we would love to hear which theory speaks to you. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want to join us for more journeys into history's greatest enigmas, be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for being part of this adventure into the deep past.